Light trucks of the late 1950s were slowly evolving, with the long-running Willys CJ5 Universal Jeep being introduced in 1955, starting under $1,500. It was 136 inches long on an 81-inch wheelbase and weighed roughly 2,300 pounds, using a 2.2-liter, 134 cubic inch Hurricane inline-4, providing 72 horsepower. And 1956 would add the Willys Forward Control Jeep, offered on light 81, 93, and 103-inch wheelbases, with lengths ranging from 148 to 182 inches, with heavier 124 and 150-inch wheelbase versions also available. Initially with the Hurricane 4, and gaining a 3.7-liter 226 Super Hurricane Straight 6 with 105 horsepower for 1957, and an 181 horsepower 4.5-liter 272 Ford V8 in the heavier duty versions for 1958. There was also still a Willys Jeep truck, or pickup and wagon. It was 184 inches long on 118-inch wheelbase and 3,100 to 3,300 pounds. Offered with both the Hurricane 4 and Super Hurricane 6, with prices starting under $2,000. The Dodge C-Series was all new in 1954 and gained an available automatic transmission for 1955, when prices started around $1,700. In 1957, a four-wheel drive Power Wagon version would become available, and a wide swept side was also added. Base engine was an 120 horsepower 3.8-liter 230 flathead 6, and in the optional Power Giant, a 5.2-liter 315 cubic inch Red Ram Hemi for 204 horsepower. Export models were still generally badged as Fargo trucks, and the traditional heavier duty Power Wagons were also still offered. The E-Series Studebakers of the late 1950s were a little different from the earlier R-Series they replaced, with prices starting under $1,700. Light versions came in 112 to 122-inch wheelbases, and heavier duty versions in 131 to 195-inch wheelbases. Initially with a 3-liter 185 or 4-liter 246 straight 6, or a 3.7-liter 224 V8, soon growing to a 4.2-liter 259 and then a 4.7-liter 289. With horsepower ranging from 101 up to 210. The new GM trucks for 1955 were the Chevrolet Task Force and GMC Blue Chip Moneymaker, and later called the light-duty Apache, medium-duty Viking, and heavy-duty Spartan, offered on 114, 123, and 172-inch wheelbases, and included a wide short bed Cameo or Suburban version, later called the Fleetline or Wideside, when a long bed version was also added, although the standard short step side was still offered, starting at just over $1,400. Initially, base engine in the Chevy was the 123 horsepower 3.9-liter 235 straight 6, with the 162 horsepower 4.3-liter 265 V8 optional, soon growing to a 220 horsepower 4.6-liter 283 in 1957. And in the GMC, an 100 horsepower 4.1-liter 248 straight 6, or a Pontiac 287 V8 for 180 horsepower. Or in the heavier duty trucks, a 210 horsepower 5.3-liter 324 Oldsmobile, with engines growing to an 133 horsepower 4.4-liter 270 GMC straight 6, and a 192 horsepower 5.2-liter 317 Pontiac V8 in 1956, with the heavier trucks getting a 227 horsepower 5.7-liter 347 Pontiac for 1957. The third-generation Ford F-Series and Mercury M-Series arrived in 1957, offered in light 110 and 118-inch wheelbases, or heavy 130-inch wheelbase, with the narrow flare side and wide style side bed options. Prices were nearing $1,700, starting with a 3.7-liter 223 cubic inch Mileage Maker 6, soon joined by a 4.5-liter 272 V8 with 144 to 190 horsepower. Later, a bigger 4.8-liter 292 was added. Also new at Ford for 1957 was the Ranchero, a wagon-based ute starting at just over $1,900. Initially 204 inches long on a 116-inch wheelbase and 3,600 pounds, and using the Mileage Maker 6 or the 292 V8, with 206 to 245 horsepower. Chevrolet would follow with the El Camino a few years later, only offering the big car-based pickup for 2 years. 211 inches long on a 119-inch wheelbase, and powered by a 3.9-liter 235 straight-six, a 4.6-liter 283, or 5.7-liter 348 V8, with up to 335 horsepower. Prices started at just over $2,200. Out of California came the rarer Powell Sport Wagon from 1955 to 1957, with around 1,200 pickups and perhaps a few dozen wagons being made. Designed for simplicity, they used recycled Plymouth Deluxe chassis and running gear, including the 3.6-liter 218 Flathead 6. They featured a unique rear drawer and underbed spare tire slot, and were advertised as the elusive $1,000 car. International Harvester light trucks went through several iterations, including the S-Series, which was a slightly updated light-duty version of the R-Series. As such, it was offered on 115 and 127-inch wheelbases, and was powered by a Silver Diamond 220 straight-six, with 104 horsepower, and prices starting near $1,700. And of course, there was an SM Series, or S-Series Metro van, as well. For 1955, Chevrolet replaced their earlier Divco-based double-duty step van with one of their own, creatively called the Chevy Step Van, or GMC Value Van, offered on 104, 125, and 137-inch wheelbases, with either the 235 straight-six or 265 V8, with 123 to 162 horsepower. And of course, the snub-nosed Divco van itself continued on little changed, with a base 101-inch wheelbase, and power coming from Continental 4- and 6-cylinder engines. In Britain, pickups were still primarily car-based, such as the Morris Minor Ute, or van, that was a popular mail carrier. They were roughly 148 inches long on an 86-inch wheelbase and 1,700 pounds, using a 950cc inline 4 with 37 horsepower. The Vauxhall Velux Ute continued through 1957 and was 172 inches long on a 103-inch wheelbase and around 2,400 pounds. It used a 2.3-liter straight-six, providing 68 horsepower. But if you wanted a real truck, you could opt for the Bedford TA, with the lightest duty versions being 201 inches long on a 116-inch wheelbase. But wheelbases ranged up to 165 inches. They shared much of their tooling and drivetrain with the earlier advanced design Chevrolet, but could also be had with a Perkins diesel. The Land Rover Series 1 carried on and was now available in a long wheelbase version, up to 174 inches long on a 107-inch wheelbase. And the shorter version was now up to an 88-inch wheelbase. The 52 horsepower 2-liter inline 4 also continued on, but a 2-liter diesel was available starting in 1957. Ford introduced the Thames 400E to better compete with the growing minibus segment. It used an 84-inch wheelbase and was powered by a 1.7-liter inline 4 with 53 horsepower. The Morris J-Type was updated for 1957 to become the JB, still 153 inches long on an 86-inch wheelbase, but using a slightly bigger 1.5-liter for up to 57 horsepower. The Bedford CA van was 154 inches long on a 90-inch wheelbase, or 166 inches long on a 102-inch wheelbase, and 2,200 to 2,300 pounds. It had a 1.5-liter 4 with 52 to 54 horsepower. In France, Peugeot offered a 403 pickup starting in 1955, 181 inches long on a 105-inch wheelbase, using a 1.5-liter providing 58 horsepower. They also offered a front-wheel drive D3 step van, 174 inches long on a 100-inch wheelbase, now using a 43 horsepower version of the same 1.5-liter. Citroen's H-Type was also front-wheel drive, and base versions were 176 inches long on a roughly 98-inch wheelbase, and power came from a 1.9-liter inline 4 with 50 horsepower. In Germany, the Goggomobil Transporter TL mail van was 115 inches long on a 71-inch wheelbase and 1,700 pounds, and used a 250cc two-stroke twin with 14 horsepower. The DKW Schnelllaster was 155 to 175 inches long on a 98 or 118-inch wheelbase, and the engine had grown to a 900cc two-stroke inline-3 with 32 horsepower. The last of the Tempo vans was the Rapid, introduced in 1957, using a Land Rover chassis and 88-inch wheelbase, powered by a 33-horsepower Austin 950cc engine. The versatile Volkswagen Type 2 was 169 inches long on a 95-inch wheelbase, and the air-cooled rear-mounted Flat 4 had increased to a 34-horsepower 1200 in 1955. The early Taunus Transit was 160 inches long on a 98-inch wheelbase and was powered by a 1.5-liter with approximately 55 horsepower. And the Mercedes Unimog 404 was introduced in 1955 on a 114-inch wheelbase and using an 80-horsepower 2.2-liter straight-six. Italy had the Fiat Compagnola. It was 142 to 159 inches long on an 89-inch wheelbase, weighing 2,800 to 3,000 pounds, using a 2-liter engine in 80-horsepower petrol or 60-horsepower diesel versions. And the Fiat 1100T van was on a 92-inch wheelbase, and as the name suggests, used a 1.1-liter, initially with 32 horsepower. The Soviet Union had the Gaz-69 Jeep, 152 inches long on a 91-inch wheelbase, weighing 34 to 3,500 pounds, and powered by a 2.1-liter inline-4 producing 65 horsepower. And the UAZ 450 cabover was based on it, being 175 to 179 inches long on a 91 to 100-inch wheelbase and around 3,900 pounds, with a bigger 2.4-liter with 62 horsepower. In Australia, Holden's FE Ute, introduced in 1956, was around 176 inches long on a 105-inch wheelbase and 2,400 pounds, and used a 2.3-liter 132 straight-six with 71 horsepower. Its competitor from Ford at the time was the Zephyr Ute, 179 inches long on a 107-inch wheelbase and 2,600 pounds, with a 2.6-liter 156 cubic inch straight-six with 86 horsepower. In Japan, there was the Mitsubishi Mizushima 3-wheeled cargo carrier of 1955. It came in 83 to 130-inch wheelbase versions, being 150 to 201 inches long, and weighing 1,900 to 2,900 pounds. Engines were offered in sizes ranging from 750 to 1,300 cc's, with 15 to 35 horsepower. The 3-wheeled 1-ton Mazda T1500 used a water-cooled inline 4-cylinder with 60 horsepower. Overall length was 239 inches, and it weighed roughly 2,000 pounds. The Datsun 120 pickup was introduced in 1955. It was 134 inches long on an 85-inch wheelbase and under 1,700 pounds. Its 860cc inline 4 had approximately 25 horsepower. The Toyopet RK Stout came out a year earlier and was 168 inches long on a 98-inch wheelbase and 3,000 to 3,400 pounds, with a 48 horsepower 1.5-liter. The Nissan B40 Junior was 169 inches long on a 98-inch wheelbase and roughly 3,300 pounds, initially using a 50 horsepower 1.5-liter. While the Nissan Patrol was little changed, still 144 inches long on an 87-inch wheelbase and 3,300 pounds, powered by a 3.7-liter straight-six with approximately 75 horsepower. The new, for 1955, Toyota J20 Land Cruiser was much upgraded, offered in 90, 96, and 104-inch wheelbases as a pickup or 2- or 4-door wagon. Its 3.9-liter straight-six produced 133 horsepower. Soon, 4-wheel drive would become a more common option on pickups, and the wide bed would become the norm. So as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below and like and subscribe.